You think the secret to making a woman obsessed with you is knowing the right things to say. But the truth is, it has almost nothing to do with your words and almost everything to do with who you are when you're not trying. Read that again. Because most men are out here rehearsing lines, studying techniques, memorizing frameworks for how to text, how to respond, how to seem confident, and the entire time, they're missing the only thing that actually works. They're polishing the surface of a house that has no foundation, and she can feel that. She always can. Not because women are magical or mystical or playing games with you, but because human beings, all human beings, are wired to detect authenticity and its absence. And what she's detecting in most men is a performance, a very effortful, very well-intentioned, very exhausting performance. And performances don't create attraction. Presence does. If you've never had someone break this down for you clearly, without the tricks, without the manipulation, without the pickup artist nonsense, then you're in the right place. And if you know you need this kind of truth regularly, not just once, subscribe right now. Not because this channel needs the number, but because you need the reminder. You need a place that tells you the hard thing instead of the comfortable thing. Subscribe and stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through will restructure the way you understand attraction from the ground up. Here's what it really means when a woman chases a man. It means she is drawn towards something she cannot fully control or predict. It means his presence creates a gravitational pull that her logic cannot entirely explain and her instincts cannot entirely resist. It means he has something, not a technique, not a strategy, not a curated persona, but something real. Something internal, something that radiates outward, not because he's trying to radiate it, but because it's genuinely who he is. That is what she's chasing, not his jawline, not his bank account. Though yes, those things factor in. What she is fundamentally, viscerally drawn toward is the feeling of being around a man who is completely at home in himself. That is the thesis. And everything else, the texts, the dates, the conversations, the chemistry, all of it is downstream of that one truth. So let's start with the misconception, because it's everywhere and it's destroying men. The misconception is that attraction is primarily something you trigger, that if you just know the right moves, the right amount of attention, the right level of mystery, the right time to pull back, and when to lean in, you can manufacture desire in a woman the way you'd follow a recipe. And this idea is seductive because it's almost true. There are absolutely patterns to attraction. There are things that work and things that don't. But the reason most men get this wrong is that they treat attraction as a performance to be executed rather than a reality to be lived. They want the formula so badly that they never stop to ask the real question, which is, why does any of it actually work in the first place? Here is the hard truth. Women are not chasing your tactics. They are chasing the internal reality that your behavior reflects. When a man pulls back and she leans in, it's not because the withdrawal itself is the trick. It's because a man who can genuinely pull back, without anxiety, without calculation, without peeking over his shoulder to check if it's working, is a man who clearly does not need her approval to feel whole. And that wholeness, that self-contained, self-generated, non-dependent wholeness, that is what pulls her, not the distance. The reason behind the distance, that's called self-sufficiency. And it is the single most attractive quality a man can possess. Now let's go to the root. Why do most men get this wrong? Why do they reach for tactics instead of truth? Because nobody ever taught them what real masculine confidence actually looks like. Most men grew up watching other men perform confidence rather than embody it. They saw toughness as a mask, not a foundation. They were rewarded for achievement, for productivity, for providing, but nobody sat them down and explained internal value. Nobody showed them that worth is something you carry, not something you earn. So they went into adulthood believing subconsciously that they have to do enough, say enough, be impressive enough for a woman to want them. They chased external markers, status, money, looks, wit, believing that enough of those things would finally generate the internal feeling of being enough. It never does. Because the feeling of being enough doesn't come from the outside. It never did. And a man who hasn't found that truth yet will always be slightly desperate, slightly performative, slightly too focused on whether it's working. And she will always at some level feel it. That's the root. And here is what it costs you, because the cost is staggering. It costs you the relationship before it starts. Because when you approach a woman or a situation from a place of needing it to go well for your self-worth to remain intact, you leak that need into every interaction, through the over-explained text, through the laugh that comes a half second too eagerly, through the opinion that dissolves the moment she disagrees with it, through the way you redirect every conversation back to whether she likes you yet. And she picks up every single one of those signals. Her nervous system processes them before her conscious mind has even formed an opinion. And the conclusion it draws is, this man needs something from me. And the moment she feels like your emotional well-being is her responsibility, desire dies. That's called pressure. And pressure suffocates attraction. It costs you the dynamic in the relationship itself. Because even when you get the girl, even when you land the relationship, if you arrived there through performance rather than presence, you will spend the entire relationship defending a version of yourself that isn't entirely real. You'll be exhausted. You'll constantly be adjusting, managing, maintaining the image you sold her. And at some point, you'll slip. The real you will show up in an unguarded moment. And if the real you is significantly different from the performed you, the relationship fractures, not because she's shallow, but because what she fell for wasn't actually you. It cost you your dignity, and I mean that seriously. There is something quietly devastating about a man who abandons his own truth in pursuit of a woman's approval, who changes his taste in music because she mentioned she likes something different, who abandons opinions he genuinely holds because her expression shifted, who swallows his needs again and again and again in the hope that compliance will be mistaken for love. That is not loving someone. That is disappearing for someone. And it costs you something you can't get back easily, your own respect for yourself. Now let's build the reframe, because this is where everything changes. Attraction, real, lasting, deep attraction, is not a response to what you do. It is a response to who you are. And who you are is not fixed. It is not determined by your past, your failures, your insecurities, your history with women. Who you are is something you build, something you choose, something you return to every single morning with intention. And when you understand that, the entire project changes. You stop optimizing for her reaction and start investing in your own reality. And paradoxically, always paradoxically, investing in your own reality is the single most effective thing you can do for your relationships. Let me describe the man who gets this. He has a life, a real, full, textured, demanding, meaningful life. He has work that matters to him, not just a job, but a pursuit. Something he returns to with genuine engagement, something that challenges him and develops him and occupies his mental energy with more than just thoughts of her. He has friendships that aren't just background characters in his romantic life, men he talks to honestly, men who push him. He has physical discipline, not for vanity, but because taking care of his body is one of the clearest expressions of self-respect available to him. He has standards about how he spends his time and with whom, and he lives by those standards not because someone told him to, but because he has decided what kind of man he wants to be. When he meets a woman he's interested in, something subtle but unmistakable happens. She doesn't become his focus. She becomes a possibility within his focus. He is genuinely interested in her. Curious, warm, present. But his interest doesn't arrive wrapped in desperation. It doesn't come with the unspoken condition that she has to want him back for his day to be okay. He can like her and still be completely fine if it doesn't work out. Not because he's pretending, not because he's suppressing, but because his identity does not live in the outcome of this situation. She feels that. She feels the difference between a man who's talking to her because he needs this to go well and a man who's talking to her because he genuinely finds her interesting and also genuinely doesn't need it to go anywhere. That second man is compelling. That second man makes her work a little, makes her lean in, makes her wonder what's happening in his world when she's not in it. He holds his opinions. When she pushes back, he doesn't fold. He listens, actually listens, not just waits for his turn to speak. And if she makes a good point, he updates his position genuinely. But he doesn't update his position just to make her comfortable. He doesn't suddenly discover that her perspective is right simply because her face suggested she wanted him to agree. He has a spine, not a combative one, not an arrogant one, just a real one. The kind that says, I have thought about things and I know what I think and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. That's called conviction. And conviction is one of the most underrated attractive qualities in existence. He doesn't chase, not because he's playing hard to get, but because chasing is not something a man with a full life has time for. If he reaches out and she doesn't respond, he doesn't send a follow-up message cataloging his feelings about being ignored. He moves on with his day. If she cancels plans twice in a row without attempting to reschedule, he doesn't ask a third time. He notes the pattern, adjusts his investment accordingly, and continues building his own life. Not out of bitterness, not as a power move. Simply because a man who respects himself does not pursue what repeatedly signals it's not available. That's called discernment. And discernment is not cruelty, it is clarity. He communicates directly, simply, without theater. When something is bothering him, he says so, once, calmly, without the passive resentment of a man who's been swallowing things for too long. When he's interested in a woman, he makes it clear, not by drowning her in attention, but by being honest about his interest while making equally clear that his world will keep turning either way. There's no subtext of desperation in his honesty, just directness. And directness, in a world full of men who hint and manage and strategically withhold, directness is startling. It is refreshing. It is attractive. He is not emotionally unavailable. I want to be very precise about this. What I'm describing is not the cold, distant, emotionally stunted man who mistakes emotional unavailability for strength. That man is not strong. That man is afraid. The man I'm describing is fully emotionally capable. He can be warm. He can be vulnerable. He can express affection and care and depth without flinching. The difference is that his emotional expression comes from abundance, not from fear. He shares himself because he wants to, because it's real, because it builds something, not because he's hoping that if he's vulnerable enough, she'll finally decide he's worth keeping. Vulnerability offered from a place of strength is intimate. Vulnerability offered from a place of desperation is suffocating. Know the difference? Live the difference. So what do you actually do? Here it is. Clean, direct, no fluff. Stop making her the center of your mental universe. This is the first move and it's non-negotiable. Whatever you're building in your life, your career, your craft, your physical development, your financial foundation, your friendships, that has to become your primary project, not secondary to the relationship, primary. She can be a beautiful, enriching, deeply meaningful part of your life, but she cannot be the architecture of it. Build something real that you're genuinely invested in, not as a strategy, as a life. Stop performing confidence and start practicing it. Confidence is not a switch you flip before you walk into a room. It's a muscle built through repeated exposure to discomfort. Say the honest thing in the conversation that scares you. Hold the position when she pushes back. Make the decision without asking for her approval first. Do the thing you've been putting off because you weren't sure how she'd feel about it. Every time you act from your own center instead of from her expected reaction, you deposit something into your confidence account. Do it enough times and you won't have to perform it anymore. It'll just be you. Stop editing yourself for her approval. Your opinions, your humor, your aesthetic, your values, these are not negotiable based on her preferences. You can be curious about her perspective. You can be open to growing and expanding your worldview. But you should never, under any circumstances, dissolve your own truth because you're afraid she won't like it. The version of you she fell for, or will fall for, is the one that shows up fully, not the one that preemptively shapes itself around her assumed preferences. Stop over-communicating your emotional investment too early. This is not about playing games. This is about sequence. There is a natural pacing to the development of genuine connection. When you dump the full weight of your emotional investment into the first week of knowing someone, when you're texting constantly, declaring how special she is, making her feel like the axis of your world before you even know who she actually is, you skip the process by which real attraction builds. Let things develop at the speed of reality. Stay genuinely present in the moments you have together without trying to cement the outcome before it's earned. Do invest in yourself visibly and genuinely. Groom well, train consistently, read deeply, build something, develop skills, become someone who has things happening in his life that have nothing to do with any woman, not as a tactic, as a reality. The most attractive thing you can show a woman is that your life is already full, and she is a welcomed addition, not a rescue operation. Do hold your standards. Decide what you will and won't accept in how you're spoken to, in how your time is treated, in what the relationship dynamic looks like, and then actually hold those lines. Not aggressively, not defensively, just clearly. A man who enforces his standards communicates volumes about his self-worth. A man who abandons them the moment there's social pressure communicates the same. Do let her miss you. Real space, not calculated distance, but actual space created by a life that is genuinely full, is one of the most powerful things you can offer. When you're not available at every moment, when you're not responding within seconds every time, when you have things you're doing, people you're with, work you're immersed in, she has room to think about you, to wonder, to reach. You don't manufacture that distance. You earn it by actually being busy with things that matter to you. You stop performing, you stop shrinking, you stop building your entire emotional architecture around whether she approves of you today. You stop chasing the feeling of being chosen because you've chosen yourself first. You stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's attention and start generating it from the inside out. You start showing up as the full, unedited, grounded version of yourself in every interaction. You start treating your own life as the primary investment and relationships as one of many returns on that investment. You start communicating from clarity instead of from fear. You start holding your center when the pressure comes. You start being the kind of man whose presence means something because his absence would be noticed. And here is the thing about that man. The real, final, unflinching truth about him. He doesn't need her to chase him, but she will. Not because he engineered it, not because he followed the steps in the right order, but because a man who is genuinely, fully, non-performatively himself is an increasingly rare thing in this world. And rare things are compelling. Rare things create longing. Rare things make a woman look across the room and think, I don't want to lose access to that. You are capable of being that man. Not someday, now. The capacity already lives in you. What's been burying it is the belief that you need to be more strategic, more polished, more carefully managed in order to be wanted. You don't. You need to be more real, more grounded, more willing to be who you are without apology and without performance. That is the work, and it is worth every uncomfortable moment it requires. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too much or too little. You are a man in the process of understanding himself more clearly, and that process, when you commit to it fully, changes everything. Not just your relationships, your entire relationship with yourself. You are the answer, not the technique, not the strategy, not the version of you that's been quietly auditioning for approval, the real version, the one that's been here all along, waiting for you to stop undermining him. If this kind of truth is what you need more of, and I believe you do, I believe this is exactly the kind of content that changes the direction of a man's life when he encounters it at the right moment, then subscribe right now. This channel exists to tell you what's real, to strip away the noise, the manipulation, the false promises, and give you the clearest possible line between where you are and who you're capable of becoming. Subscribe. Come back. Share this with a man who needs to hear it. You are not alone in this room. There are men watching this right now who have felt exactly what you've felt. The exhaustion of performing, the confusion of doing everything right and still losing the girl, the quiet erosion of self-respect that comes from building your worth on someone else's approval. We have all been in that place, and we are choosing together to build something more solid, more real, more free. This is where that starts. Let's keep going.